Hey there, and welcome to Checkbox Other, the podcast for those who don't fit in a defined box or category. I am your very congested and allergy-ridden host, Nikki Innocent. Yes, 33-year-old onset allergies are a real thing. Ugh, pollen is not my friend lately. Don't worry, I am not congested in the full interview, just for this little intro, and at the end you'll probably hear my little sniffle again. Before I hop into the details of my wonderful guest today, I just want to share a couple things that have happened since the last episode. So this week, I am super excited to share that I launched my new website. This has been a work in progress for what feels like forever. And this website has so much great information. So if you are interested in working with me at all or hearing any more about what my coaching practice is like, or even just diving a little deeper into these podcast episodes, you can head over to my website, which is nikkyinnocent.com, and check all that out. There are a lot of pages. There's a lot of information. And if you are interested in taking some action on any of these opportunities to work together, there are these handy dandy forms that you can fill out. I made them pretty short. They shouldn't take very long. Plug information in there and we will get back to you from there. On the podcast page, there's actually a link called Join the Conversation. So if you are feeling after you listen to these episodes that you want to share something, you want to share your story of when you have felt other, or you have a topic you want to hear more about, head on over to the podcast part of the website, and there is, within that Join the Conversation link, you will have the ability to choose what kind of feedback you're providing, and there's a wonderful text box for you to drop some information in there. And hey, if you want to share some love, one, feel free to add a review on iTunes, but two, there is the ability to add some love in there too. So any love that you've got to send my way, I would love it. My nasal cavity is not loving me right now, so I will take all the love I can get here. The other thing I want to mention that's not on the website yet, but will be on the website and definitely will be on social media is, I know I mentioned last time, I will be hopefully launching a digital course around public speaking. Really not planned initially, but a response to the interest that I've gotten from a lot of people coming out of my TED Talks. So hopefully that'll be coming in the next couple of weeks. It will be a digital experience. My plan is to roll it out in a kind of cadence fashion, but it will live online so you can do it in a self-guided way as well. So you can take the time that you want, purchase it, go through it, and then you'll actually have it to go through again. If you have an opportunity, you can use the step-by-step process. So it's 10 modules. We're in the process. I've built out the outline. I have all the content ready to go. We're just going to start recording all that great stuff. And hopefully, I'm assuming you'll get to see my face, whether you want that or not, I don't know. But I like to see people's faces when I do this stuff. So I hope it's a good thing. There's another aspect in the works, another workshop that I'm playing around with, doing a live opportunity where we can actually be together in a room and work through some stuff around my first TED Talk, which is about embracing your otherness and activating your superpower that lies within your experiences of feeling othered. So that will be coming in the next couple weeks. Really, really excited about that, working out some logistics so I can give some information about where it's going to be and how we can get the first batch of folks in the room. And hopefully, if there's enough interest, we can do it more than once. I went to a workshop last weekend with the wonderful Elizabeth D'Alto, who was last episode's guest, and the ability to be in a room full of people that were there to truly open up, be vulnerable, make real authentic connection. It was a truly transformative experience, and I can't think of a better way to stretch outside your comfort zone than to be in a safe space with other people that are doing the same. So those are a couple things that are coming up. The last thing that I want to mention is I will be leading a workshop session at the Gearing Up 2019 conference that's in the beginning of June. The title of my workshop is Rewriting the Rules, Empowering Fearless Millennial Leaders. Really, that session is all about the power and the opportunity that the millennial generation has, being the largest generation that we have in our country, but really in the world. But a lot of the dictating factors that I'll be talking about are the American experience. So in the United States, how the millennial generation has historically been talked about, has been perceived, and how a lot of the power constructs that we operate in will probably have a difficult time staying fully in place with just the makeup, the background of the millennial generation. It's much more diverse. A lot of us have been growing up with our parents telling us we can do whatever we put our mind to. There are no limits. And I know a lot of people, a lot of my peers, I'm on the older end of the millennial generation, have found ourselves hitting a wall. We're hitting this quarter life crisis. Sure, you want to call it that, but really a point where we're realizing that all the things that I was supposed to do all the right things, they're not fitting with my view of my future. So understanding that it's okay to actually push back on some of these rules and to really understand why these rules work for some and don't for others, and how to productively address the difficulty, the friction that comes with this kind of change. And especially when that changes with the idea of how power is going to shift. When you have all of these diverse millennial leaders, whether it be the diversity metrics that tend to be more visual or otherwise, there are going to be a lot different voices at the table. There's going to be a different mentality if you grew up with more inclusive messaging from when you were much younger and you've been exposed to all different kinds of people through the wonders of the internet and through the wonders of television, and really just through the wonders of access and people feeling more empowered to speak their truth and be themselves. So really, really excited about that workshop. Enough about all this. Let me kick off the information about my wonderful guest today, Erin Robertson. Erin, I can't help but smile when I say her name. She and I went to college together. I've known her for 15 plus years, and she has been a delight in all of those years. Erin is the founder of two wonderful nonprofits, which we go into depth about in the episode of how she came about founding them, how her and her husband have helped them grow, and really how they found their calling in the particular issues that they address. Erin is a mother of two delightful, beautiful children, and we talk a bit about how the future of the world is something that we are really interested in shifting and changing and making a more kind and compassionate place. So I feel like it's a universal message a bit in that, but I hope you enjoy that conversation. And I should mention, one aspect of what we talk a lot about, and I'm realizing now is I got to give a little bit more intro to it, is that Erin's husband, David, is a Major League Baseball player. He's been in the league for, I believe she mentions 13 years, which is long for most professional sports athletes. The geek in me, who is a Yankees fan, apologies to all you Red Sox fans, David has spent the majority of his career as a New York Yankee, has won World Series rings, and David and Erin have, I think, from my perspective, which is definitely not in the inner circle, but having a view into them and who they are, they've handled this life that seems so distant from the normal everyday that you're told whatever life is supposed to be, and they handle it like it's completely and utterly normal. They are 100% themselves, and I don't feel like you hear that story very often. So Erin does a wonderful and generous job of sharing a bit about what their experience was initially when they were dating before he was in the minor leagues even. So kind of talked about the experience of how their relationship shifted, how they needed to kind of shift the dynamic around and figure out the best ways to be present with one another. And then also obviously the evolution into building a family and how that all plays out. I think it's a really interesting conversation. I think you'll really enjoy, I know I did, her story of how she's felt othered in life and really what that's taught her. If you are a reality TV show person, I think you might enjoy that conversation as well. So definitely stick around for that. And then finally, Erin and we dive into conversations about cancer and loss. So if you've ever lost anybody in your life to cancer, or you know anyone that's battling cancer right now, I think we have some really great conversation about it. I think a lot of times when you hear people talking about cancer, there is this kind of feeling to it. There's this weight, which warranted. It's not a light thing, but I feel like our conversation was about how we can move forward and we can make this experience of illness one where it's more open. We're able to speak about what's going on, because that silence just adds more weight to a situation where there's a lot going on. So I hope you enjoy it. If any of this stuff is triggering, take a minute. Definitely no need to push through, but I don't think it will. Well, I can't say that for you. I really am so grateful for the generosity that Erin brought to the table and her vulnerability and the willingness to really dive into topics that sometimes can be really difficult to talk about. So I could talk for hours about her, but you know what? I think it's better for her to share her story with you herself. So let's get this started. Hi, Erin.
Hi, Nikki.
How you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Excitement doesn't even capture it. It's so funny. My body just, again, this heat in my body is the biggest clue around. And so when I feel it up my neck, I'm like, yep, I'm excited to be here right now. This is good.
That's good. You have that indicator.
It's good. And then sometimes it's like, don't look at my upper lip sweat. Please, please, please don't notice it. So, I think the best way to kick this off is I would love to hear a bit of your journey that has gotten you to where you are today. I know obviously a little bit of it since we've known each other for uh, a long time,
I
15
know
years.
it's crazy to think how
Yeah.
long ago.
Feel free to start wherever you want and lead us to the wonderful Erin Robertson of today.
So yeah, I am from Massachusetts, born and raised. I grew up in a small town, Medfield. Pretty standard childhood. And then I ended up going to Bentley College and stuck with my Massachusetts roots, where I met the lovely Nikki Innocent.
Hey.
And I was at school for marketing and minoring in law, both of things which really interested me at the time and still do. And I thought at that time, as many people of that age do, I thought I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted in life. And I envisioned myself going to law school and becoming a lawyer. And that was sort of my game plan at the time. And I worked in the law offices there at Bentley for an organization called BCAL, which was the Bentley Consumer Action Line, which I really enjoyed. And it was like a really good first step of being like, okay, this is sort of the world you're getting into. And so, yeah, it was all great and interesting. I met my now husband when I was, I guess, a junior in college.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, at the time, I kind of thought like, okay, this is the way my life is going to turn out. Little did I know. Didn't turn out at all like I thought. But yeah, after college, BCAL, which was affiliated with the Attorney General's office, it was actually a great experience. And I don't know if they do it anymore, but I would recommend a similar experience to anybody that was really interested in it. It's a consumer action line. It was affiliated with the Attorney General's office, and it was basically mediating and handling consumer complaints between businesses and consumers. Essentially,
as a college student.
Yeah, and essentially to
Wow.
avoid litigation, to help sort of get people to a resolution before even going to like small claims court. It was really great and it was really interesting. And I enjoyed it, obviously, because I think I worked there like all 4 years. And
like, I actually still have a desk there, but no big deal.
I definitely I worked there for a really long time. And I worked there after college. I worked there in the summers. Like I managed it. I managed the whole office. And it was funny because it's the only college run. Like they actually have offices throughout the state.
Wow.
And BCAL was the only one that was actually had anything to do with a college. Usually it's just mediators that were employed that were sort of the same thing, like pre-law or whatever. And yeah, it was really interesting. I learned so much just like learning about consumer law and like, the whole thing. I sort of continued the journey.
I can't believe, I'm so sorry. I'm just going to add this really quickly. I am blown away by how many things at Bentley or in my life of organizations I've been a part of that were going on that I was completely and utterly blind to. So to hear this is insanely cool that this is happening, and that as a college student, you could hop in and do that. That's so cool.
Yeah, no, it was a really cool thing that they offered. And I mean, I really only got involved because, like I said, at the time I was minoring in law and I thought like, okay, this is going to be my interest and I'll probably pursue this. And part of my scholarship was the work study. So it was like they offered you money, but you had to work on campus. So that's how I ended up getting that job. But I really, like I said, I felt like it was like a really great introduction for me into that world. And then I did it for a while, and then I continued working for the state and for the government. And it made me realize too, even just through working there, I was sort of like, I don't really know if this is the passion that I had for this. It kind of made me think like, is law really for me? And I don't know. I don't really think I would have questioned that had I not had that experience working with the Attorney General's office and moving around and doing different government jobs that were sort of law affiliated. So in the meantime, I met my husband, and he's from Alabama. He was playing baseball for Alabama, and we met in Massachusetts in the Cape. He was playing baseball with some of my friends from high school, and he was definitely had more of a passion for what he was doing. He was actually, we're the same age, but he was a grade behind me. And he got drafted and started playing baseball, which is funny looking back at that too, because I am such a realist. And I was, like, this is my path and I'm going to be a lawyer. And I was this is not going to work out. Like, who
Right.
becomes a baseball player? That's such an unrealistic thing to try to
Yes.
be. That's really great that you have this passion, but like also make sure you have a really strong plan B, because odds are plan A is not going to work out.
You're like,
And
plan A, plan B, plan C. I mean, have a couple, all right?
I was literally like, okay, I'm going to need to hear your plans A through Z.
And your 5 to 10-year plan for each would be great. Think.
Exactly. So he was playing baseball, and I actually like really did give him sort of like this, you need to have a good concept of how unlikely this is going to happen, and you need to have a time limit on how long you're going to attempt to do this, and then what your plan B is, because you can't be playing baseball or like attempting and then, what are you going to do for work? You're going to have no experience and no degree. It's going to all be awful.
Right.
So I was a pessimistic realist on top of it.
Hey, that sounds like more than just a realist. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no, I know. I don't know why I was so like, I guess because I
well,
knew nothing about sports. And it just seemed like, okay, the only thing I could do is like sort of look at the numbers. It's like 0.01% of people actually do this that are even good. So
see, I don't know if pessimistic. I think maybe it's a very data-driven realist.
I think that's what it was. And I mean, because it was definitely obviously not me actually watching him play baseball, because I knew nothing about if you were good or not. So yeah, I was like, So anyway, he was playing baseball, and I literally was giving him like a 3-year like time frame of, try this for 3 years. And if you're not like getting close to succeeding, you're going to have to figure out another plan. And he was playing minor league baseball. I had graduated the following year, and then we were doing the long distance thing because I was working for the government in Massachusetts, and he was traveling all over. And then after doing that for so long, we were kind of like, okay, this is challenging, and I didn't love my job. So I transferred to Trenton, New Jersey, stayed with him there. And I continued working, and he continued playing. And then he left Trenton. He left 2 weeks after I moved there.
Oh my goodness.
And I stayed in Trenton, and then he continued on. And, after about a year and a half, he made it to the major leagues and has had a very successful career. So good thing he did not listen to me.
Good thing he wasn't as data driven as you. Yeah.
Exactly. But anyway, in this whole process, I was trying to figure out like what it was that I wanted. But then along the way, it's like, I could see like, okay, here he is, and I love him, and I want to support him. And he has a very clear set passion. So I wanted to be able to support that, which is difficult to do when you're working during the day and baseball at night. And I would go to his games and then work in the mornings. And it was a lot of balance in the beginning and trying to figure out like, how does this all work?
And so then patience, right? Because a lot of those schedules are completely out of your control.
Absolutely. And just, sort of figuring out like, where is he going to be? Where am I going to be? How are we going to see each other and make this work? I'm now living in Trenton, New Jersey for whatever reason.
Was that on your plan? Trenton, New Jersey. It was like that. You had a pin on the map right there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. That's the dream. So yeah, so he was playing in New York City, and I would go to my job at 5:00. I would like check out of my job, and I would drive to New York City, to the Bronx, to watch his game, which started at 7. I would barely make it in time. And then the games don't end till, after 10 o'clock at night. And I'd either stay in New York with him, or I'd drive back to New Jersey and then get up 5 o'clock in the morning and go back to work. And it was killing me, because I was like, I'm getting like 3 hours of sleep a night. This isn't the solution either. And it's not like I was that passionate about my job there either. So yeah, it was kind of a lot of figuring out, where do I fit in all of this? And we were in a position where now David was fortunate enough to have been so successful in his career. And it gave me an opportunity to really kind of look at like, what is it that I want to do? Not something that I need to have to support us anymore, because for a while, especially as a minor league baseball player, you don't make any money. So I was supporting us, and it sort of was, what is it that I want to do? And philanthropy was always something that I was passionate about, and I wanted to be able to pursue. So kind of having an opportunity where I was no longer like, okay, I want to do something that I can be successful financially as well. Like it took that out of the equation, and I was able to really like pursue all of those passions, which was great. And, a blessing. And I felt like I finally figured out like, this is what I want to do. And I want to be able to put that into helping people.
And that kind of passion feeds itself, right? So you can actually see the impact of what you're doing. Whereas in a lot of jobs, you have your deliverables, you put them out there, and you're like,
I'm not sure where that went, but I hope it helps. And so when you're doing
Exactly.
something along these lines, I mean, there is such a beautiful reciprocal relationship when you're hopping into that world of philanthropy.
Exactly. Yeah. You immediately feel that impact and you feel great about it. And it was something that I've always been involved in philanthropy in so many different ways and levels throughout my life. But then this way I was able to say, you know what, I'm going to take this time to focus my efforts on things that I know are helping people. And so, yeah, we got involved in a bunch of different charities, any way that we could help. And then in 2011, David's from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and a tornado hit Tuscaloosa. And immediately we were like, okay, what can we do to help the people there? I mean, that's where he's from. That's his hometown. It was a pretty massive tornado and it did billions of dollars worth of damage. Many people died. I think 56 people. It was a big deal. So that's when having the experience at that time of, okay, I've already been working with a few organizations, but like my mindset is always like, what's going to help the most? What can we do that's going to make sure that these people who need something get it? So that's when we said, you know what, we're going to have to do it ourselves and we're going to collect the money ourselves to make sure we can distribute it to the areas that are needed the most. A lot of times you donate money, you don't really know where it ends up and you can't really guarantee it's going to go exactly where you want it to go. So we started our organization, High Socks for Hope. And what initially was going to be something sort of just to help out that area from that one disaster that happened turned into this organization where we've raised millions of dollars worth of furniture and money to help all over the country and all different natural disasters, as well as other endeavors that we've had. We work with veterans and we've done a lot of different things. It's been really great just being able to have the opportunity to give back like that, but also to just see where that help is going and to facilitate it and know that, okay, this is really helping people. It's been really great. It's crazy to think that was 8 years ago.
Yeah, right?
When we started
on
it.
so many levels. Yeah. I'm going to give my own third-party plug. I, in my previous life in corporate, had a chance to work with you guys to put some money to work in the philanthropy space. And I had exposure to about 250 different organizations in my role, activating a lot of the funds within Bain Capital. And I will say your organization was the organization that allowed me to say I was able to see the impact and not just, okay, $10,000 got allocated here and 5 here and 2 there. It was, I got to meet the people. I got to see the bed being delivered. I got to see the joy on their faces that they had a place to sleep after months and months and months of not having that and of losing their homes. I think you guys also do, though I had the privilege to be there in that space, I think you also do a beautiful job of showcasing the stories of the people that you're helping. I find it very different than most of the organizations that I worked with in the sense that it's not necessarily about High Socks. It's about the families and it's about the recovery. You can see the one-to-one impact even 8 years later and even multiple natural disasters. And you can see how you get that humanity. That what I like to say is like the thumbprint, you actually feel and see the impact that you made in that unique situation. So I'm just gushing a little bit, but I do think it's important because a lot of times when you talk about an organization that you're running, people might not know how it really plays out. I can at least personally attest to the fact that you guys walk the walk. It's been beautiful to see the organization grow from the very early stages. So thank you on behalf of like everybody for what you do. And then also I just need to say, and I'm sure you were going to get here, but you have a knack for bringing in incredible people. So helping people has been great, but I think that the way that you've built your organization and relied on people has been really inspirational for anybody, whether they're running a philanthropy-based organization or not.
Thank you. Well, that means so much. And I feel like, really that's been my biggest goal in all of this. With any charity or nonprofit, you always want to have the mindset that this is not about us, it's about the help that's being given. And that at the end of the day, a lot of times, especially in our world where there's, the celebrity aspect, I think a lot of people sometimes think, oh, this is a good excuse to have fancy parties and wine and dine. It's like for us, it's absolutely not about any of that. It's about what we can do to help these people. Natural disasters aren't prejudiced. They hit anybody and everybody. And we've seen firsthand how in the matter of seconds, your life can change completely and how everything you own can be taken from you. And, people that you love can be taken. And it's so heartbreaking, but it's also, to see people gather around and want to help in any way that they can is also this really heartwarming experience. So there's just so many emotions that go into it. And then being able to be a part of that is just a really rewarding and wonderful experience. And I know for me, being able to help facilitate that and say, hey, listen, there's plenty of organizations that do things, especially disaster relief related. But for us, I want people to have that comfort in knowing, like, if you really want to help people in this specific area that we're working with, I'm your girl. Like, I'll do what you need me to do if you want to help those people. And I'll make sure that these people are put back in their homes and these children are sleeping in beds. And it's really puts things into perspective, especially with our life. And everybody has issues and day-to-day complaints. But then when you go into some of these areas and you see, wow, like these families who didn't have an awful lot to begin with, then to have everything taken away. But then a lot of times they have other issues, whether they have a sick child or a single parent. There's so many different things that I think, wow, like we're so fortunate. And then here, these people who are so kind, but yet are sleeping on a pile of clothes because they don't have a mattress anymore because it was taken in a flood and their home is condemned, but they have nowhere else to go. So they're staying in it. There's such a massive amount of need out there. So, we do as much as we possibly can. And I am unbelievably fortunate to have our managing director, Judy Holland, who we've been working with since the beginning. She's so great. So she and I have such a similar mindset. And by the way, it's also just the three of us, me, Dave, and Judy. The two is, and then
small but mighty,
wonderful group of volunteers. But yeah, I think that because that's always been our mindset. Like, we don't need anything fancy to do this. It's not necessary. A lot of it, it's great. And, you want people to see it. And, a lot of times I understand why it's like, marketing is important and doing these things. But I always am like, I'm not going to pay for a commercial when I could be paying for someone's house. So we in turn have been able to help a lot of people, but thanks to Judy, she's been the hardest working person that I know. And she is, I don't know if she's ever said no to anybody. And she is there, and she just goes from city to city to city, just helping as many people as she can. So it's been really wonderful to have her on our team. So that's where we are, and plugging away and helping as many people as we can. We're in Texas, helping with people that were affected by Hurricane Harvey, and in Florida and in Alabama, where we're based out of. And there was a tornado not too long ago there. And
did that tornado it came through not the same path, but did it impacted a very similar community? Am I right, or am I wrong in that?
It wasn't the exact same area, but fortunately we have, our setup is in Alabama, our warehouse and everything. So we were able to help right away with that one because we have the resources there. And it wasn't as big as the one that hit Tuscaloosa in 2011, but it's still, I think I always feel badly for those people that are affected by kind of smaller natural disasters because it just doesn't get as much attention. But for somebody that loses a home, it doesn't matter to them. You know what I mean? Whether
it's just as devastating.
1,000 people were affected, or they're like still need help. So we were able to be there, which is good.
One of the things that I find so interesting specifically about this organization, that a lot of the work is centered around these relatively unpredictable natural disasters, is from an organizational perspective, from boots on the ground. You make a point to be there. There is this kind of community building aspect that needs to happen to ensure that you know the right people around you in those spaces and you're being directed to the people that need the most help.
Yeah. And then this is where like Judy comes into play so much, because she's always jumps up and is there. And then we have a good group of people that we've met along the way that are sort of do similar things, and we all go and help in the ways that we can help. And having the experience of dealing with several different natural disasters at this point, we're well aware of what the immediate needs are and what comes in. It's like you always see a lot of clothes, a lot of people send clothes. Like, we don't even accept clothes. It's not a major need, and there's so much excess of it. And sometimes it can actually become a problem, and it can hinder things because you have this influx of used clothes and you don't have people to go through them and clean them, and it's just not always a need. But things like that, like, we're able to know, even through communicating with the people that we know that are on the ground, or whether we have people on the ground there, we know, like, okay, they're good with bottled water, because a lot of companies will send truckloads of water. But there's also these other needs that aren't usually met that we can come in and say, okay, let's focus. If we're going to get, monetary donations, let's focus on getting industrial strength garbage bags, because people don't run to the store thinking, oh, they're going to need a ton of bags. But you do, because you're cleaning up everything that's now on the ground. So just from experience, I think we've been able to kind of streamline everything and also make sure that we really like to stretch every dollar that's
Yes.
donated and we get the best deals and we know where to buy the things and get wholesale pricing and all that kind of stuff just to ensure that, yeah, we're doing as much as we possibly can to help people.
I love that. I mean, kindred spirits for our ability to penny pinch. I love
Yeah.
that. It makes me smile. My grandmother's favorite thing is waste not, want not. And I feel like I had the biggest smile on my face whenever we were like, yeah, we're going to make this go as far as possible. So,
I know.
yeah.
I mean, you know me, I won't go to CVS without a coupon. So
Girl. Just for the listeners here, if you ever want to know the person that has the best CVS like rewards level, Erin has taken the cake for probably CVS favorite customer.
absolutely. They do. They send me a personal thank you note like every quarter.
So good. I know you've talked a little bit about obviously High Socks for Hope. You talked a bit about the organizations that you worked with prior to starting High Socks. I know that you've become involved with pancreatic cancer awareness and exposure, and I know that that has touched your family. So one of my questions that I like to ask people when we're talking about philanthropy and organizations is, what is the thing that you wish that people knew more about when it comes to cancer awareness in general, pancreatic cancer, and just the experience both for the patient and their families?
So, just a little background. David and I, like I was saying in the beginning, we kind of got involved with a lot of different charities and just sort of did what we could do to help out in the very early years of his career. I think it was probably around 2009 when we first got involved with Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, which is a really great organization that's focused on helping patients with pancreatic cancer. That was my first experience into the world of pancreatic cancer, which before that time, I don't even think I knew where your pancreas in your body was.
Right.
So I learned a lot. And then fast forward several years, my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2016. One thing about pancreatic cancer is that it's the most deadly cancer, it just because the lifespan and expectancy is so short. Usually they have a very hard time detecting it, which then leads to, by the time they do detect it, it's usually pretty far advanced, which is difficult to come back from. So after being diagnosed, he passed about 9 months later. And that was really hard because it's like, I had already been involved with Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. One of the most important things is sort of knowing the signs and trying to be aware, because there is no tests or early detection, or it's something that they're constantly trying to advocate for and to find ways of detecting this a little bit earlier. So seeing my dad go through it firsthand, he wasn't feeling well and he knew something was wrong, and he would go to the doctor, and it was difficult because they would diagnose him with one thing and then another thing, and like, okay, well, he was on antibiotics because they thought maybe it was an esophageal infection. So and it was like, take this for a month and then come back. And if you're not feeling better, come back in like a month. And by the time you get another doctor's appointment, it's been 2 months. So you really see, like, it's like, oh, okay. So now I really see firsthand why it is so hard to diagnose, and why, by the time he did get that diagnosis, it was too late. So I think for people knowing the signs and seeing, and it was hard for me because I'm like, man, I knew all these signs and it didn't even register with me. But, I knew kind of after the fact that he was like, yeah, like I felt sick, and I don't think he expressed it as much as he was feeling sick. And I think just being your own advocate and saying like, hey, listen, if you're not going to help me get to the bottom of this, then I need to find somebody else that's going to help me get to the bottom of it. That's really key, especially for anything that's potentially terminal. It's like you want to try to get to it as quickly as possible. So, being your own advocate, I think, for him, I always think like, okay, when he first started not feeling well, what if we were able to sort of figure it out then? Like, would it have been the same outcome? And I just hope for other people, and even for doctors, to be able to know these signs and symptoms and to be able to find these tests that are accessible and say, okay, let's at least rule out some of these things, because if not, then maybe you can find them a little bit earlier. But we did the same thing for my dad after he passed. I started, it's called Rick's Fund. And it's sort of along the same concept as High Socks for Hope, in just saying like, we went through this, and you could see how much is needed during this time frame when you're sick, and how many things that, aren't covered by health insurance. and how it is a struggle for a lot of people.
Right.
So being able to just kind of collect funds and say, we can directly help people going through a similar process for things that may not be covered by health insurance, and that could alleviate just even a little bit of a burden, because it is extremely stressful. It's stressful for the patient, it's stressful for the families. It's just, there's a lot of things. So to be able to help in a way to say, okay, we're going to at least cover some of these costs that aren't covered by, your health insurance.
I think that that's wonderful. And that I think the part of it, there's this financial burden, right, that you talk about, and then you talk about the stress aspect. But there is also this part, I've had some cancer within my family as well. And when I was in high school, my stepfather passed away. And there is a part of this that's kind of this emotional burden that comes with it. That is, one, should I have seen it earlier? We aren't programmed to think that a cough is cancer. We can't live in a world where we think everything ends up being that, or else we'd go crazy. But there is this part. So there's that part. There's also this part that, like, I have no control in this situation. I can support this person as well as I can. I'm new to this, right? I don't know where the pancreas is unless I was so good at that game operation that I knew where every little thing was. There's no way to be all knowing of all things. And in a moment where your emotions get so high, it's hard to all of a sudden become a scholar. So I think there's a part of this, yes, the financial part that helps alleviate some of the stress, but I think there's a part of what you and David choose to do in getting involved in things that that also brings this sense of safety and this safe space of, you're not alone in this experience being the first time for you. We've lived through it. We've been through it. This means something to us. It's not just kind of a nice thing that we're doing. It's really something that we believe passionately in. So it's kind of becoming part of a family altogether in that way. And I think there's something just so beautiful about how you guys do that. You kind of you're at a loss for words a bit about these kind of situations. There's no one word that can make it feel better. There's no one thing that can alleviate all that happens. But there is this sense of, if something like this is going to happen, I can feel seen and heard and known that, like, I'm not alone in it. And I did the best I could. And we all did the best we could. And we celebrate the life of the person while they're struggling through it. And if they're no longer with us, we celebrate that too, and do the best we can to support others that are going through the same challenge.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think that that's why, for both of the organizations that we have, it's not like when we started out, I didn't have a huge passion for disaster relief that I wanted to, pursue. It sort of chose us in that way, but I think it's so true. It is a little bit of a sense of comfort because, in times of crisis like that, whether it's through natural disaster or through, getting sick or a family member getting sick, it's a lot of questions. You almost panic because you think, oh my gosh, I don't know where to go from here. Like, there's just so much. And like, where do you even turn to? And there's so much information out there. And what's the right choice? Having somebody to say, hey, listen, either I've been through this personally, or I have helped many other people navigate through this, and like can be an advocate to help answer some of these questions for you, or be somebody that is there and that knows and has been through this and has gotten through it to the other side, and that, things will be okay. We just have to, navigate the waters here for a little while. It helps people sort of think like, okay, I can breathe for a second. We're going to get through this, and, we're not alone. There are other people out there who have been through all of these situations. It's just finding those people and helping them, and sort of being that community to help each other. So it's true. I think even just having that support system is so incredibly important for people. And that's why even organizations like PanCan is so great, because they have such a huge network of people that they can connect you with. And you have so many questions, and you don't have all those questions all the time. Like, it's not like ready to go at the doctor's office the first time you get the diagnosis, saying, oh, okay, great, how is this going to all go? And like, all these questions, it's like usually it's in the middle of the night where you're like, oh God, I didn't think of this, like what's going to happen? So it is great to have that support system. So to be able to provide that for people is really nice.
There is no checklist, right? And there's also that part of it. I don't know if this is what you meant, but that waking up in the middle of the night where your mental capacity is being used to kind of getting through moment by moment and handling the emotions of it all, and being able to have a resource. And really, I think there is this part, and it sounds like PanCan is very similar in the sense that, like, it feels like you have a person to talk to. It's not sending to this ambiguous inbox and hoping for an answer, that there is that human on the other end of that exchange when you're up at night having one of the most human experiences of contemplating the impact of something like that.
Absolutely. And I think true. I mean, especially for something like cancer that touches so many different people and in your family, it's like a family goes through cancer. It's not just the one person. So, having that system in place to support all aspects of it, and, having these organizations out there that can kind of help, like, the patient, but also the family members. And,
Right.
everybody has questions and everybody has concerns, and it's a lot. So yeah, I think that that's a really important thing to provide for people.
Well, I'm very glad that you guys are doing that. And I know that of all the people in the world, I want to hang out with you guys anytime. So if in a moment where things are really tough, you get to be around really great humans, I give the recommendation right there to the Robertsons. So this is going to be kind of a bit of a pivot, but one of the questions I like to ask people on the podcast, it's in the name a bit, is if they'd be comfortable sharing a story or two around a time where they felt different or other in their lives and what that looked like and how it's played out in the larger scale of their lives.
Yeah, so it's funny, I thought about this beforehand. I mean, knowing that, the name of the podcast and that you've asked people this. And I think for me, especially in the beginning of my husband's baseball career, and I was so sort of looking for my own path and figuring out like, okay, where do I belong? And, I have this degree, and I sort of had such a mindset of like where I was going, and then to sort of take a hard left turn and figure out, and support him, which I was happy to do. But, I felt in the beginning like, okay, here I am and my husband is doing great, but I felt like there was this box of a baseball wife. And I felt like, well, that's not me. I don't fit that mold, and I'm not, that stereotype. And I felt like I kind of really fought back against, people refer to them as WAGs, like wives and girlfriends. And in the beginning, I'd be like so offended if someone sort of put me into that category, because I was like, I have so many of my own things going on, and that is not me, and that does not encompass me. And I felt like I almost had to prove myself to people, like I was more than just this quote unquote baseball wife that, I thought everyone had such a certain like stereotype around. And I mean, there is, I think a lot of times people think like, oh, professional athlete's wife. A lot of people do sort of have this stereotype and mindset around it.
Right.
But after a few years of knowing, getting to know so many incredible people, and like this journey has been so wonderful for us. Like we've been able to go to so many different places. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it comes with so many challenges. I rarely get to see my husband. Like right now we have 2 kids, Luke is 6 and Violet's 1.5.
Ooh.
And just balancing, trying to see their dad and school and sports and all of our own schedules. It's a lot. But, I kind of felt like getting to know a lot of these women that are in this world, I realized by kind of like separating myself and not being part of that box and being like, that's not me. That's definitely not me. Like, I am so much more than this. I realized like I was essentially doing what everybody else is doing. Like here I am stereotyping my own group of people and being I'm not like this. And then come to realize I really haven't met anybody that fits that stereotype. I mean, I'm surrounded by this incredible group of women that are, from all walks of life, from all over the country and the world. That are, so many like incredibly educated women who own their own businesses, or, I've met doctors and dentists and lawyers and, all these women that have so much going on too. And, just so happen to be that their husbands are really good at a sport, then I realized like, what, I should never be ashamed or anything, or embarrassed or try to act like, oh, okay, like I'm better than this, because first of all, I'm absolutely not. But second of all, like this stereotype actually doesn't even fit this box. Like there is no stereotype. I mean, you really have such a gamut of women that are in this world. They're amazing and they do so much, and they have their own lives and careers, or moms that are taking their kids and doing the same thing, where we're all kind of just trying to like keep our family together, but keep our lives together and keep everybody happy. So I feel like, for me, it was one of those moments where I was like, oh, okay, this is a checkbox here, but like not many people are checking it.
Right.
And it's hard. I mean, the media really does a number on a lot of different people where they sort of, created these images, and, there's reality TV shows out there that are sort of like make it look like there's this whole life. I find it comical because it's so far off.
Yeah, it becomes a bit of a parody of itself a bit.
Exactly. It's funny because even, throughout the years, like Dave's played for a while. I mean, he's in his like 13th season.
He's like an old man out there.
I
Huh?
know he really is. I think he's the second oldest one. So we've done this a long time. So I've met a lot of people, and I've sort of, we've been to a lot of different places. And it's funny because over the years, there's been several times where there will be a person that will want to like discuss having a reality show. And years ago, probably a decade ago, I remember we were all approached by this reality show that like wanted to, produce this reality show on baseball wives, which of course, I mean, everybody's usually curious about like the ins and outs, but it's like after like interviewing people and looking at it, they were like, yeah, would be a really boring show.
Yeah, this is really exciting. We're living a normal life here. Cool. Great.
That's just it. They're like, so like, yeah, like who's your least favorite? And it's like, no, everybody gets along. Like we're all fun. And they're like, wow, this is so boring. This would never be a good TV show. We need to find somebody else. I think that tends to be what people think. They think it's definitely different than it is.
And can you imagine, like, I have this is kind of like a subplot for myself in the world. I would love to see a sense of media exposure that actually shows that stuff. I don't think it's boring. And I think that if we're able to show people getting along, I have this whole idea that God forbid we actually have drama that is positive drama instead of like everybody being murdered, in all the late night TV shows, that there is some sense of like people treating each other poorly and then they make it through. It's kind of like, what if things were centered around being good to one another? And don't worry, there are enough challenges in life for it to be interesting enough. Like we actually showcase what it looked like to treat each other well. I mean, it's a little kumbaya, but at the same time, like I'd watch that show. People watch Ellen DeGeneres show, right?
Yeah, I would totally tune in. So yeah, you should create that.
Oh, well, me and my media background, I met a woman at a podcasting conference that was talking about creating a network like that. And I was like, hey, you know what? I'll be your listener. I'll tell everybody about it. Like, let's get this stuff moving. So if there were one thing, this is a really light question, so I'm just gonna go for it. If there were one thing that you could change about the world right now, what would that be?
I mean, I think even just kind of going off of what you just said, I would love to see a world where we were all kinder and everybody was less judgmental, a little kinder to each other. Because I mean, imagine that world where everyone was kind. Like that would be such a beautiful place. You know what I mean? Like I think it's sort of like we all have struggles in our life. We all have things going on. We all have stress. It seems that we're in a day and age where there's a lot going on and people have a lot on their plates.
Right.
And, I think that if we all recognize that a little bit more about each other and not sort of like in this competition of, oh, I have more going on, or you think you're stressed out, I'm stressed out, or we all just sort of like embrace that we're all doing this as best we can and try to treat each other a little bit kinder and know that, nobody's perfect and we all make mistakes and we don't have to get upset about it and let things go a little bit and to not get outraged at every single thing. I think social media is such a blessing in some ways, but it is, it's a lot and it's scary to think even with kids. I'm like, oh gosh, I dread the day where my children are going on social media because you see the nasty sides it can bring out on people. And I mean, we've definitely had our fair share of people, the attacks kind of. And if people just kind of took a second and took a step back and, we don't have to agree with everything. We don't all have the same opinions and that's fine. But like, if we could just sort of understand that everybody's entitled to their own opinion and let's all just try to respect each other and be nice. I think that's a dream, but I think it would be nice even to just all focus on being kinder and especially teaching our children kindness. With having kids, it's like I see so much of it and especially in young kids. And I think because we are all so busy and sometimes, that kind of gets pushed to the wayside a little bit. I try to consciously make an effort every day to teach Luke kindness. And, he has like a chore chart, but in that is also like kind acts that he'll get rewarded for. To just sort of instill that in him and to say, let's make this world a better place by being kind to one another.
And one thing I'll just even add to that, because I think there's this whole idea in our wonderfully polarizing culture right now of conversation, that this idea of being kind and nice doesn't mean just smiling through stuff where people are treating you badly. It's this whole idea of being respectful and giving people their space and choosing to use your energy towards moving things forward. Because I think there is this whole idea that like, if something's going wrong, don't be nice and just watch the wrong thing happening because you're putting a smile on. It's this whole idea of owning your space and creating a space where everybody can be treated in a human way, at the very least, at this point in our lives right now. That's not even the baseline we're operating from. So I think there is a part that, like, in the same way that I was like, I would love happy TV, where it feels like kind of kumbaya. It's this idea that by making things kind, by making things nice, by making things happy, doesn't mean it takes away from the reality of it. It doesn't just kind of sugarcoat it all the way over.
Exactly. Exactly. It's more like being kind and understanding. Yeah, like there's people out there. I always feel for the people. It's like if you see something like somebody that's going through a tragedy, and then there's inevitably all these people that sort of speak up on social media being like, well, if you were just like this, and like it's like, are you kidding? Like the ultimate goal is like people should have compassion for one another and to be kind and to strive on making the world a better place by at least not making it a worse place.
I like that. I like that. We could end right there. That's a beautiful. Make it better, not worse. Thank you very much. See you later. Well, I appreciate you so very much for taking time today to talk to me and share your story. I learned new things about you. So I am super excited. It's sending me off on my day in a wonderful note. And I hope I get to see you soon because I miss your face. Keep up the amazing work, and I'm going to keep shouting what you're doing from the rooftops. I can't help it.
Thank you so much. You're such a great friend and supporter, and I'm loving this podcast. So thank you. Thank you.
Sure thing. Thanks, my friend.
See, I told you. She's pretty damn amazing, huh? Well, glad you made it all the way through. I feel like I should be giving like gold stars if you make it to this outro every episode. Well, this is the verbal gold star, virtual gold star. I don't know, but so happy you made it all the way through. Again, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Leave a review on iTunes if you want. I love it, if you would. If not, and you feel like dropping some love in the wonderful handy dandy form on my website, again, NikkiInnocent.com. If you head over to the podcast panel in the Join the Conversation link, you can drop a comment in there. All right. You have probably heard enough of my voice for today. So thank you again for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode. See you later.